Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday gym because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. Afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. Right on, Melody. Thanks for being with me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Denny.
You're more than welcome. I'm very grateful that you're here. I liked your resume. Program will be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How did you get there? And how did you knew that this was the way to go? So that is what you do for a living, please.
Well, as of next week, it'll be 3 years ago that I retired from my regular job. I worked for the government for 30 years. And I started my new life, which is a writer and an artist. And I'm so happy that I
It's a pretty
get to
solid
do
shift.
that. Completely
I'm not
180
sure, but I
degrees.
highly doubt that you were a writer during the government situation. But so what happened? Were you like walking on the street one day and you were like, "Let me work for the government for 30 years and let me do some
No,
writing
sorry about
afterwards,"
that.
or did something else happen?
So when I was young, I was always a writer. I started writing when I was 12 years old. And unfortunately,
I
I
don't think
shared
I even knew the alphabet at 12.
well,
Maybe I
unfortunately,
did, but I'm not sure.
when I shared with some of the adults in my life what I wanted to do, without even looking at my writing or knowing anything, they immediately said, "You'll starve," and shut me down. And so I didn't, it was always there because when you're a writer, it doesn't go away. Just like an artist,
Yeah.
you write because you have to. It's who you are. So,
Writer, artist, musician, and you know, you don't, I mean, that's what I believe. Correct me when I'm wrong, all right? But when you're in those professions, you don't even have working hours. Like it's not a 9 to 5 thing, it's when it hits you. There's
mhm.
this former neighbor of mine, I really loved him, really tremendous guy. I know him, I was probably gonna kill him if him and I are ever roommates. He like wakes in the middle of the night at 2, 3 a.m. To
Oh.
start writing notes or something. And I can hear it. Not very loud, but I can hear how like, man, no wonder you're not married. I
Yeah, no kidding. Or he'd have to be married to a like type person
mean,
for
I'm
sure.
not married either, so maybe I shouldn't have said it like that, but yeah.
Right. So anyway, going from there, so when I finished high school, I didn't immediately think about going to university because I didn't have since they'd shut down my dream, I didn't have any clear path. So the first thing I did was I just worked at a retail store, and then from there I went to work for lawyers for many years. And that began my quest of asking people, if you had to do it again, would you pursue the same profession? And I clearly remember this one lawyer. He was a real estate lawyer. And he said, absolutely not. I was like, okay, so that was not his dream.
Yeah, that one
And
time when you receive an answer that there are like 0 seconds hesitation.
yeah, exactly. And so then, and also the legal secretaries, I would ask them, well, is this what, do you love this? If you could do it again? And the answer was always, um, the money's good. That's always a bad answer because
Yeah,
that doesn't
when you get
love
that
it.
answer, it's
Also, it's like, no, that's not. And that was, I don't think even one told me, yes, I love this. This is what I always wanted to do. So then from the law firms, I shifted and I went to work for a psychologist for a while. I was his secretary, and that was kind of a strange job. I started getting followed by some of the patients, so I left that job after 3 months
that
and
sounds like
tried again.
an odd movie.
Yeah, it's all right about it one day. And then I went back to a law firm for a while, and then they started bringing in personal computers for everybody because when I first started working there, they had word processing pool because they had the old fashioned typewriters and everything. And so once they started bringing the personal computers for all the secretaries, they started layoffs. And so then I was kind of at loose ends and didn't know what I was going to do. So then I applied for the job for the government. And I had also applied to a college to teach English as a second language because I thought, well, I'll travel. But at the same time, I had just met what would become my husband, who would become my husband. So I thought, oh, do I want to leave? So I ended up taking the job with the government. So at first it was good. For the first 7 years, I worked in customer service and I enjoyed that. And then after 7 years, I shifted into the claims division. So it was car insurance. And claims car insurance, when people are calling and angry, not a happy space. But I still made it work. I enjoyed
It was
helping
like
people.
the early version of the call center.
Yes, yes. So it was, yeah, so that was pretty, like in the beginning, it was nice, but probably the last 10 years, I probably cried in the shower every day before I started. Like it was bad. But is when you get to this, you sort of, if I had been in my 30s, it would be different. But I was
Yeah.
so close to the end where I would get my pension that I thought, okay, and I'm going to suck it up and just deal with this. And but then before actually that career ended, though, the pandemic happened. And I had already started writing a novel. And I thought, okay, well, if I don't finish it now, when am I going to finish it?
And
So
during the pandemic, you have all the time in the world.
exactly, exactly. So I finished writing it and then began the whole journey of, trying to get an agent, submitting to publishers, this and that. And then after, I think, was it a whole, I think 2 years, I said, okay, forget this. This is frustrating. I'd get so close. But what happened, because of the pandemic, the market was flooded. So there was tons of people writing. And so what normally a publisher would say, well, fix this or fix that, and we're interested, they could just move on because they had such a selection.
Yeah.
So I would get some very positive, like they say, positive rejections. But I'd get so close, and I thought, okay, you know what, forget it. So I formed my own publishing company, and so I have Poetic Gems Publishing, and I published it myself. And so it's done very well. I published it officially in August of 2022, and now I'm working on another one. But this one is actually nonfiction, so it'll be interesting a totally different process for this one.
I'm sure it will be. And please don't forget to give me all the links
Absolutely.
about whatever
Sure.
you want. Publishing company, books, everything. Because I want to
Sure.
put them in the description below. The channel is mostly viewed on LinkedIn because it's a professionally oriented program, right? So,
Fair enough. Yeah,
sense.
I'm on LinkedIn. Sure.
Yeah, but please do so that I can tag you, people can see you, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Now, my third question is, how did you know that this was the way to go? Reason I'm asking is because I'm sure you've noticed that too, right? A lot of people going to universities and colleges, and I myself went to college. I have a master's degree. I'm not against the institution at all. I'm highlighting the fact that they're going over there without knowing why they're there. They do have this mentality that once they got the diploma, things would be easier. That's rarely the case. I have spoken to a couple of people from the US. Now, here in Europe, things are not like that. Here, I went to a private college. That was about 15 years ago. Things are not very different today. Now, when I was there, I worked as a bartender and I was able to cover the whole thing without a problem. And that was a private college. I
Mhm.
know that in the US, it's not exactly that cheap. And sometimes it could be crazy expensive. We have crazy expensive universities here as well, but
Mhm.
a few of them.
Same in Canada. I'm in Canada, and yeah, it's the same. North
So,
American.
losing time, because it's a loss of time. There's this meme going around. Normally I laugh at that, but not at this one in particular. A young man applying for a job. And the job interviewer, like, you should just forget everything you learned from college. And the young man says, I never went to college. And the guy said, well, then you're not qualified.
Is that stupid?
How does that make sense? But it's happening and it's going around. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And with that background that
Mhm.
you had social skills. Yeah, you can't be a good secretary or any of that without the social skills. You probably had agility, otherwise you wouldn't have escaped the crazies that were following you. So you could have done any number of things.
Yeah,
Uh, Yet you decided, you highlighted that it was a childhood dream. Every child has dreams. Every child had a lot of dreams. Most of them are rather odd, to put it
right.
that way. Yet you kind of felt it that this was the way. But again, you could have picked any number of ways. How did you knew that writing was exactly for you, and this was the way to go?
Well, as I said, I started writing when I was 12, probably even earlier, actually. And it was always my way of processing the world, you know, how I take things in. I started with poetry, and it, evolved short stories and then, full on novels. It just, it resonated with me that this was the best way to process the thoughts and feelings. Like a lot of people, they go to counseling, and I've done that too. But I found this was the most effective way. When you pour your thoughts out on paper, it just helps sort things out. And it's what made me light up inside. Because, I mean, not to say that I didn't enjoy my time in the various jobs. I mean, it was like I say, I've got some great stories,
Yeah, I'm sure
very
you do.
entertaining, and I did have education through there. That's the part I missed telling you. So it isn't as though, so I did take college courses and things like that. But my thought was exactly what you're saying. Why go if you're not certain, and waste money and waste time, and for
Mostly
what? And it,
time, because I'm sure you've wasted money and I've wasted. I don't know a person that didn't. It's
yes,
part of life and it happens for good or worse. But
yeah.
when you lose time, and especially a young person, you lose between 4 and 6 years, that's a lot of time, and it's really an issue.
Yeah. Yes. Well, this is kind of how I felt about when I started doing the, marketing the book and forming the publishing company. Was I don't want to try and shop my book around for 8 or 10 years. I know people that have. I'm 58 years old. I don't, time's a ticking, man. I want to get it going. So, but for younger people, so true. They tend to used to frustrate me with the government job because, like you said about that meme, um, I would say to them, why are you trying to hire these people that are fresh out of university? They're not going to enjoy this, going to feel locked in. This isn't, you're not going to retain people. You need to look for people that are like working part-time, like moms that know how to multitask and know how to do this and that, not these college universities. And they'd nod their heads and do it their own way, and then they had no retention. And it got so bad that after I left, I'd heard they were actually offering incentives, $750, if you could recommend somebody that would come to work for the company, and if they stayed for 6 months, they'd pay you $750.
You
I thought,
just described my situation. I graduated. When did I graduate? 2012, I
okay,
think. And things weren't good in Europe. 2012 was a bad year. A lot of people weren't hiring. So my career started in the government sector. I was a financial analyst, and I started working for the National Railway Infrastructure Company that was attached to the EU funding system. I was basically working for the EU. And
sounds miserable.
again,
I said, it sounds miserable.
it was. You ever seen this Johnny Depp movie when he's a pirate and
Yeah.
he goes on a pirate ship, and the pirates are part of the ship. And that's what it was like that. I was horrified. They part of the walls of the floor. They got roots of the. I was,
Yeah.
oh my Lord. It was horrible, but I didn't really have much of a choice. And
Right.
you know how they mentioned that, like when you asked, uh, did you like it? And they were like, we paid good. That paid me miserable. They paid me
Oh,
peanuts
that
over
makes me that makes it 10 times worse.
I was there for 3.5 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
I think I was. a horrible man in my previous life. Probably someone who
Torture. Yeah.
Probably somebody who arrives at the office covered in children's blood or something. Nobody deserves that. but but yeah, you definitely described the situation perfectly. Because if they hired those kind of people that know how to now, first of all, I was actually a complete jackass when I got out of college. Uh,
Most.
yeah, and I was arrogant, I was brash. I did had that, and when I'm highlighting the fact that young people have this self-esteem that's not really deserved, well,
Yeah.
I'm talking from experience. I was like that. I wasn't that different,
Yeah.
but I was able to see it rather early. And imagine me at, I think I was 20 or 21 or something when I had my master's degree going over there, puffed and everything, and ended up on Davy Jones shit. Like it wasn't. Yeah,
You wanted to walk the plank.
but there was somebody saw it. It was the government.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was truly crazy. And I have a fourth question. I know you can cover it deeply, but I want you just from the top of your head.
Sure.
If you can give my audience one advice, my audience mostly folks that are exactly in that situation, they're wondering, is this for me? Have I chosen the right way? Is it too late for me to start a new career or something? For those folk, if you got one advice, what will it be?
It is never too late. It's not over till it's over. Absolutely. As long as you have that spark in you, you need to close out what everybody else is saying, because you're not going to be satisfied. You're going to end up on the pirate ship,
Yeah.
miserable, so it's okay if you want to have a job to, just
And when
make sure you're not starving, but
yeah,
don't.
and when he said that it was 100-year service, he wasn't joking. It's that long.
Right, right. So as long as you are still keeping yourself engaged, whether it's, taking a course in what your passion is for, or, however you dabble, make sure you keep that alive. Otherwise, yeah, it's like it's a slow death. You have to keep your dreams alive. And if you give yourself a timeline too.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what I find is really important. Like even with this, what I'm writing right now, I'm not going to just have an open-ended uh, deadline for it. I want to be finished in the fall, because if you don't, it'll drag on for years and years. So anything, make sure. Actually, I remember hearing this quote: uh, "Goals are dreams with deadlines." And so
Wow.
that's
All right.
what you really right. That's so you really need to think about that, and no, just never give up and give yourself a deadline and a
That's,
structure,
I
obviously.
mean, and in all fairness, you are your own publisher, so it makes sense for you to put a real solid deadline.
Mhm. Well, one thing I can tell you about that too. So I have a lot of friends that are traditionally published, and I found that they still have to do a lot of the legwork themselves.
Really?
And yes, I was so shocked, because in conversations, I wouldn't mind being traditionally published if I got the right offer. And because
What
it
do you
would
mean
really,
legwork? Is it like marketing or something else?
yes, yes.
All right.
So like all their social media, because I remember, talking to my one friend, and he was saying, well, um, I don't know about that. This so and so takes care of it. And then it turned out his publicist or the agent or whatever hadn't taken care of it. I think in Europe they have this, or maybe not, I don't know, it's across Europe or only in the UK, but we have something called the public lending program. And
Not
so
sure.
it goes to, when your book goes to libraries, they end up paying you for the first 5 years. You get 100% of the payment for, I think, as long as you get into 8 libraries, they pay you out for that.
Depends
And
on the contract, but mostly yes.
mhm. And so because I told him, I don't see, did you submit for this? And he just assumed that they'd done it for him because he's represented, but they didn't. And I
Oh.
thought, yeah, lost a pile of money there that, like, especially when somebody, that's their primary income, all those little things matter.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot along the way. But it would be really interesting. I do hope to publish something traditionally, just so I can do an article about all the 3 ways that you can be published, with a hybrid publisher, self-publishing, and traditionally, and show the pros and cons of all of them. Because what I found is I have made just as much money as some of them who were traditionally published, because there's nobody taking a cut from me, so that kind of thing, it matters.
And not to mention, it's a pretty good business. I mean, it's not going anywhere.
Yes.
And not only you're doing what you're doing, but you also do have one solid foundation.
Yes.
And with that said, Melody, huge thanks for being with me. It was nice talking. And please, again, don't forget to send me all the links so that I can put them in the description below.
Absolutely will. Thanks so much.
Thank you. It was an absolute joy.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.